All right. Well, welcome all of us back to the podcast, back to Tomboy Official. I am just going to talk in general about just, some holiday stuff, some clothing related stuff related to maybe some gender relevant topics. Maybe some stuff that came up, I want to say this past weekend, but I mean, we basically had my whole family, minus my dad. We do Christmas. I usually get into some Hanukkah celebrating with a close friend, and I don't really formally do any Kwanzaa related things with my family, but we do Happy Kwanzaa, we recognize that it's celebrated and that it exists, but we don't really, as a whole family, usually do anything, mainly because we all have weird work schedules, and I feel like after taking, people in my family tend to take more time off for Christmas, and so it's very rare that I'll have family, for Christmas and then into the new year, or they'll do Thanksgiving and Christmas, but then usually they'll leave everyone kind of goes their separate ways by the new year. And so because Kwanzaa is the 26th, and that week till till the new year pretty much, it's kind of hard to fit all that in if people are doing Thanksgiving and then Christmas and then Kwanzaa. It's a lot, and so we never really formally got into doing it, but my family is African and African American, black, and some mixture of people dating in, married in, but we don't have I think I was pretty much raised with a denominational Christian Sabbath keeping church, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, Jewish Sabbath time period, and so we basically, I would say we never really officially got into we don't do we do the classic American. I'd say in our household, you would growing up, you would probably notice that there's usually a church service before Christmas sometime. If Christmas falls on a Sunday, they would never do a Sunday service. Even for Easter Sunday, the church I grew up in was so, I don't want to call it adverse, but so kind of not catering towards what they call Sunday worship, which, I mean, you can worship any day. I'm not here to preach religion or whatever. I'm just talking about how I grew up and kind of how things evolved until now, and just my recent experience with the holidays. I would say it was good, pretty great, honestly. It was just great being around people my own age, people in our 30s, hanging around the house, because I'm at my folks' place, I'm not really able to really have a lot of guests. And so I'm used to being around people that are in their 30s for the most part. I have some friends in their 40s. I have some friends I might still have. Yeah, I think I have a couple friends in their 20s. But most of them, when I met a lot of my friends, they were in their 20s. I'm older than a lot of my friends, but I'm not the oldest of all of my friends. I don't know. I have different groups of friends, but whatever. But yeah, so when I was growing up, I basically didn't have like we didn't do like a, like, you know how Catholic churches or a lot of Sunday churches have like a Sunday service or like a mass on Sunday, or Christmas Eve, or Christmas Day. Like, we didn't really do that. Like, the only time we would have like Christmas on, you know, if Christmas fell on a Saturday. So like, yeah, if Christmas fell on a Saturday, they wouldn't like cancel church. So church would happen on that day, but there was never like a separate service. Like, church was always on Saturday. And then, yeah, like they might cancel some of the Friday night things or make one of the Friday night things into like a worship type thing, Christmas related, or, they might, I say they, like, as in what the church itself would plan, like, and schedule. So they would maybe, you know, get us to all, you know, enjoy a, like basically we would be able to just kind of enjoy one another, during the kind of time period. But I mean, we never recognized Christmas as a like day that Jesus was actually born. It was just the day that it was the celebration of, you know, the miraculous virgin pregnancy and birth of Jesus. That whole storyline was kind of celebrated then. And there was some debate usually about, like, should there be a Christmas tree in the church? I think, I don't know if I grew up with the Christmas tree in the church, but I know, I believe I had gone to church when there was a Christmas tree there, like on the stage setup. But I mean, we kind of also, like, it was a very, like, studious type of a church, and so we did kind of learn about, like, the pagan backgrounds of some of the things. But I feel like some of the things that the church did were to kind of appeal to the mainstream community, because especially during Christmas, you know, people have visitors, they have people who, you know, if they're not even religious, it's very common that people, or even if they're another religion, it's very common that people have a Christmas tree in their house. Like, I know plenty of people who aren't pagan, who aren't Jewish, who aren't Christian, who aren't any, you know, who, I've known Muslim friends that had Christmas trees. I've known non-religious friends who've had Christmas trees. I've known Jewish friends who've had Christmas trees. I've known Christian friends who had Christmas trees, Christian friends who didn't have Christmas trees, Jewish friends who didn't have Christmas trees. Like, there's some people who just do believe in it. Some people just don't believe in it. And everyone kind of takes their stance and acts kind of accordingly. But I mean, I don't know. I always kind of wavered with it, because I was like, why are we doing things that, you know, I don't know. It was always confusing to me. It's like there was always this kind of message that I got from church that was like, you know, this denomination is the best one because it follows this, and that. And we don't do this other stuff, but then, like, we kind of do that other stuff too. So that's kind of how it felt. It's like, we don't do the pagan related stuff, but then it's like, yeah, but we kind of do the pagan related stuff. So it was kind of, but they would say they did it to, like, appeal to people who might show up that were, like, not Christian, or that were Christian and liked the Christmas trees, just to, like, be more inclusive, because they felt like if we don't have a tree at the church, or if we don't have any, like, Christmas decorations that are, like, those Christmassy colors, or sing Christmas songs, like, the song, they would sing, I forgot about that too, they would sing songs at church that were, like, the Christmas carol types, like, anything that was, like, not, like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but, like, the stuff that had, like, a Jesus theme, like Silent Night, or, like, you know, that kind of, like, the ones that you would find, like, maybe in a hymnal, like, those kind of Christmas songs. But we, and I think they used to have Christmas plays. That used to be one of my favorite things because I really like live performances, like plays, acting, music, whatever it may be. And we did have a lot of people that were talented. Like, I think I've talked about it before. You know, I grew up in a church where people were there all the time. A lot of people knew each other, so it's like you kind of usually had a pretty good chemistry with a lot of people there, and that kind of translated into a lot of the creative things that people would do together. There was definitely a lot of like creativity and like, you know, like people would be very creative. And you know, like musically and everything, and we're used to spending time together, and so, you know, getting groups together to like practice for plays and, you know, be the band in the play, or like singing, and that kind of like singing in a quartet or like a choir or whatever, like that wasn't uncommon because people spent so much time together. I mean, that's the thing that I think I miss the most, is kind of just like the community feel of the church during the holidays. Because for me, when I'm not connected to a church, it's like, you know, the church I grew up in, like I mentioned, it's very community based. Like, because the traditions are so a little different from a lot of the mainstream around, and like, you know, LA, especially, like when you're raised in LA, people aren't always like running around keeping the Sabbath and stuff like that, but if they are, they tend to be Jewish. And so it's like, you know, if you're with your Jewish friends on the Sabbath, you're not doing the same things that you would be doing with the Christian Sabbath keeping friends. And so it's like, you know, the conversations wouldn't be the same. If you are going to have like some kind of Bible study, it wouldn't be the same. The rules are different. People kept the Sabbath in different ways. The laws about doing or not doing certain things were different. So it was just a whole different experience. But it wasn't uncommon for people to like come to church in like Christmas colors and Christmassy themed stuff, like sweaters and bundled up and that kind of thing. Even though it's like LA and the weather's usually pretty good, like people still, there was still that mainstream Christian themed traditions kind of going on at the church too. But they would talk about the history of everything, and they would talk about the details of it. So yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know if I want to go in way so much detail, but that is one thing that I do miss, is like just that community feel. So I was kind of hoping that there would be like a Christmas play this season. I think there was one, but I kind of rely on my mom a lot to like tell me what's going on, and then like, you know, I'm not blaming her. I mean, I could easily look this stuff up on the internet by myself. They have like websites and stuff, but I kind of was relying on her a little too heavily, and then she's like, oh, I think they had it already kind of thing, and I was like, dang, I could have gone. Like, I would have gone, you know, because I was I'm in town, so, you know, I'm staying there now, so I might have actually popped into like the Christmas play. That would have been something that to me is like, okay, I can go to the Christmas play and not feel too weird about it. But I do notice that, you know, some of the toxic environment from that, you know, church, from the experience with people from certain types of churches, like the denomination I grew up in, certain like toxic trends that kind of go on that are like allowed to happen. It's really hard to kind of get away from it because of that community feel. I think that's the main thing that always draws me back in to like there's people that I definitely miss. Like there's people who I've known since I was like 5 years old, like people who watched me grow up, people who know my parents. Like it's just like you can't redo that. Like there's nobody you can meet, you know, when you're almost 40 years old later on in your 30s, you know, that is gonna know you from, you know, when you were youth or whatever, except for people that you grew up around. And it is kind of like a small town feel, like a small community feel, even though it's like multiple separate churches. Like I've explained before, like we had sports leagues where there were multiple churches around LA, and the church schools where a lot of the kids who couldn't play sports on Sundays would come to to the sports league, and there were even some Jewish kids that came. There were a lot of things where people like we had like similar dietary followings and stuff like that, but so that's kind of how I grew up, around a lot of people eating a lot of vegetarian foods, strong health ethic, strong work ethic, strong like education, interests, and just a lot of community vibes. But yeah, like I've mentioned before, the judgment in the community and just kind of like the inability of people to just focus on their own problems and have like insight into like how they might be negatively impacting people is just, people just seem to be so oblivious. Like they get too comfortable around their own group. Like for example, I mean, I can give an example of this. Like if you've ever been in a group that's like racially or ethnically just like you're all the same, and then like sometimes people might get into a habit of like talking about other groups. Like I feel like there's a fine line between saying like for example, if I'm around a bunch of minority friends or black friends and saying like, me as a black person, I have A or B or C experiences sometimes with X, Y, or Z ethnicity or X, Y, or Z type of racial group that doesn't happen to be within that group that I'm in at that moment. But if you're hanging out with only people that are like that, it can get pretty comfortable to be just like talking about those kind of races. And it's not, I don't really know what to say about it. Like it's not to make people uncomfortable or be like hateful, but I think it can go too far. Like I've noticed experiences where I've had where I was like, I think that maybe that conversation maybe went a little bit too far, or people got uncomfortable. But it's like, I don't know. Like I don't really know what. I mean, it's in the past. Like I don't really know what to say about that. But I feel like with church groups, it can kind of get the same. It can get like people of the same denomination or the same belief system or the same church area or whatever it may be, can get a little like, oh, well, we kind of have these beliefs in common and we follow these rules, or think that we should try to follow this stuff, but we saw those people over there doing these other things. So there can be a lot of judgment about the rules, or just in general, just like, even if it doesn't have to be like breaking a religious rule, but just something that somebody did that is maybe personal information that shouldn't be shared, but people feel like they're able to share it because it's like different maybe, or like out of the norm maybe. Like for example, if somebody gets pregnant out of being married, or if they have an abortion or something like that, I'm not saying that I know plenty of people who have done things like that. Like I don't judge them on it. I hope they're okay. I mean, that's all I can really say about it. Like I don't really think much more than that. Just like, dang, I think it would be a really rough experience. I can't imagine being pregnant with like a baby on the way, and with my situation financially as it is, and like having to like learn how to raise a kid, and like maybe putting some of your career path on hold, and like a lot of things would change in life. And an unexpected baby isn't necessarily like always like the most joy. Like I know there's some stress that comes with it, at least a little bit, and it's like a lifelong commitment. It's not like, okay, I'm having this baby and then in 5 years I can like do something else. It's like, nah, that baby's yours. Who knows how it's going to treat you? Who knows how, if you're going to have a spouse or somebody helping you bring the kid up or whatever, or what support's going to look like. And then for people who have abortions, it's like they do it for whatever reasons they do it for. Like, I don't, it's not my business. It's not my kids. Like, I don't really think it's my place to really say anything. But there would be things like that where people might be really strongly opinionated, all kinds of topics that are like controversial that people would feel like, okay, I can speak on this topic about this other person's life, even though it's like personal information that they're sharing that, you know, nobody may have known before they like mentioned any of it. But to me that's inappropriate. To other people, you know, I've mentioned it and other people maybe got offended by it, or maybe got like didn't really think there was anything wrong with it, or were still doing it even when I was asking them please don't. It's just kind of just a habit that people just can't get out of. And so I definitely noticed that, and it seems like people are pretty blind to it. Like when I've mentioned it, even amongst like church leaders, they're kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, really? You don't? Like, it's like, how am I the only one that like can say something and speak up? I feel like it's a form, it's something that just makes the community a negative environment. But I feel like for me, that was almost one of the only things, if I have to be honest about it, that's almost one of the only turnoffs for me, other than like, okay, like if I might not believe the same thing or want to do it, like who cares, like whatever. But that's the only thing that I found was like a boundary for me, that I was like, I can't really budge on this one, you know, because it was kind of malicious. In my opinion, it's kind of a malicious way to like have a community together. But I do miss it. Like I do miss the ease of just being around people who culturally you were growing up the same, you grew up in the same time period, your parents, everybody knows each other. It's kind of different now from like this perspective now, because I can tell everyone's kind of been through some trauma, and I think it's kind of an interesting place to kind of come to, you know, trying to interact with people after they've been kind of like traumatized by whatever situations have happened within their lives, whether that's, you know, estranged family members or divorces or, you know, parental kind of like, you know, abusive people in their lives and things like that. Like, I think everybody I know pretty much has had, like, or just like financial disasters and things like that. Like everyone I know has had like something within the last probably like 10 years since I left from LA and came back. I feel like everybody kind of has now like a different like path that they've experienced. But I feel like in a way that kind of makes it a little rockier with the community feel. Like people are a little less sensitive, a little more like, I don't know what the word is, but it's just their own stuff comes out, myself included. I'm not saying I'm immune to any of this, but I just feel like I just don't like the way it feels when I've been around those types of people. And it's just kind of like I've been so used to building my own community in the last like 10 years that, you know, I've been able to kind of pick people that I was like, okay, you know, not necessarily like, okay, like I want perfect people. It's like, no, hell no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like I pick people that kind of vibe on the things that I find important, not just people who vibe on the religion that we grew up in, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, I feel like I like when people like to treat people respectfully, when they value that, when people value, like even if they don't have good relationships with their families, like you can tell that like with their relationships, like if they're dating or whatever, they want it to be a good relationship, they want it to be healthy, they want to find ways to work on it, they try to work on it. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but it's like, you know, I didn't grow up around people who were like that. I grew up around people who, you know, we were all in different stages of life back 10 years ago. People weren't all like trying to get married and all that kind of stuff either. So, not too much so, but yeah, I kind of was realizing that, you know, these types of things, you know, when it comes to, you know, being a minority type person on a lot of different levels, I found it my experience in San Diego, despite all that I've gone through, has overall been a pretty healing experience. It really did give me a lot of faith in humanity to be like, wow, okay, it really is possible to just like, attract a certain energy towards you, attract a certain type of person that you want in your life, be the type of person that you want to be. Like, I even remember when I was growing up, there were a lot of things, not just like clothing wise with church attire and dress codes and things like that, not just like with the clothing and androgynous kind of preferences and all that kind of stuff, and dating and all that kind of stuff, not with just that, but there were definitely times when I had a lot of experiences with people where I would be just like, I had like a personality that was a little different. Like, I was pretty sarcastic, pretty jokey, pretty much like keep a distance, I remember making jokes that weren't really, like, a lot of passive aggressive jokes. Like, I remember being at church once. I don't really mind name dropping because, like, I was in the wrong, so I feel like I can name drop if I screwed something up. I don't mind, and I don't really associate with this person specifically anymore. Not for any bad reason. We fell out of touch. But I remember being with I was at church, like, when they did, when they do those greetings where you have to, like, it's time to welcome everybody and, like, go around and shake everybody's hand, and you, like, stand up and go around to different rows and, like, mingle for a few minutes or whatever. But yeah, there was a friend, I think my mom was over next to me, and I was with this friend, Mandy. We grew up together, and she was cool. Like, I never had a problem with her. I remember she was really good at singing. I think she became a model or like a makeup artist or something along those lines, like, later on in life. But she was cool. I didn't have any problem with her. Like, we had a friendship that we kind of developed over time a little bit, and then she had invited us over to her house, and I was like, wow, her house is like immaculate. Like, compared to mine, like, my house was always kind of like messy. Not that, like, we could clean it and it would look fine, but it's like we had so many people living there. Like, there were 5 of us living there. None of us were on like a single day cleaning schedule where we all clean. Like, we all would clean bits and pieces when we felt like it. So it was very rare that our house would be like completely all clean at once, unless we knew we were having like company directly coming. Then we would clean like the whole thing, or like every now and then it would all coincide where like everything's now clean. And my mom did probably the majority of the cleaning, but like we studied so much, and that was our job, to study. And so we didn't, I could say that like growing up, even though we did do a lot of chores, we weren't like expected necessarily to be like cooking breakfast for everybody, cleaning the dishes for everybody, cleaning all the rooms, cleaning, like, it was like you wake up, you study, you review before school, you get up, you go to school, you get to class on time, you get the grades you need to get, you go to your classes, you come home, you study, and pretty much you're studying almost till dinner, and then after dinner, if you still have to study, you're studying. So like, when it came to like cleaning and stuff, like, we knew how to cook and clean and all that, but we didn't, I feel like compared to some households, like, we didn't all have to clean like that all the time. And so, like, we could do it, but because, like, we were so busy doing our main priority of a job, like it wasn't necessary for us to, like, we couldn't just leave messes everywhere. But it was like we didn't have to fully clean all the time. But like her house, Mandy's house, was like immaculately clean. Like, I had never seen a house that clean before that wasn't like an open house or something. Like, I was like, wow, people live here? Like, this house is like spotless. Like, I was pretty impressed. But I remember once she came up to me during one of those like greetings, like at church or something. For some reason my mom was like standing next to me, and like I was talking to Mandy about something. I can't remember what the topic was, honestly. It totally slips my mind, but she said something like, I'll just make an example up because I can't remember, but it was something maybe along the lines of like, oh, like I want to learn how to play guitar, but the last time I did it, I accidentally purchased the wrong strings and they were really expensive. And I may have said something like, oh, you're kind of an idiot, or like you're kind of stupid, or like some, but kind of like in a sarcastic way. I didn't think she was stupid. I had nothing against her. Like, I was never mad at her, but for me, I was kind of like, I would say stuff like that. Like, I felt bad. I still feel bad about it. I don't even remember what I said, but I'm like, damn, like, like I would say stuff like that to people just as like, instead of saying something nice and kind, like I would want to say something nice, but I was just kind of like, okay, well, my mom's here, and like, it was kind of like one of those like ego kind of things, like, well, I don't want to be like in a vulnerable position being like praising you or like offering comfort. I want to just be like, appear more kind of like cool, or like, I don't think it's cool to be like that, but like in my head it was kind of like, that's kind of the vibe that I was trying to give off, was that I was like cool or funny or like kind of like badass, like kind of like that. Like, I'm not like that though. I'm like a teddy bear. Like, I'm a sensitive little person. Like, I am not like that at all. But I do think that when I was growing up, I definitely hated that I felt like I had to act like that. Just because of the community I was around. I was kind of like, I was always kind of saying stuff like that to people, but I never really meant it. Like, I honestly never really meant it. Like, I don't think there were that many people. I didn't really grow up around people I didn't really even like. I had definitely preferences for some, and then preferences to not be around certain people, but it was easy to not be around the people I didn't want to be around, like it didn't really matter to me. I knew so many people that like I didn't have to be around the people I didn't like. And usually when it was somebody I didn't like, it wasn't just me. It was usually other people that would be like, what is with that person and their temper, or what is with that person and the way they handle things. Like, other people would see things that I saw and be like, wow, that person's doing things that aren't okay. Like, it wasn't just me just being like, oh, like, I don't want to be around this person because of some other drama. Like, it was never like some dramatic thing. It was always like their personality just kind of sucked a lot of the times. But I mean, mine did too, but it's like all of ours did. Like, we were all kind of like a little like passive aggressive with each other and like sarcastic. It was really hard to be just like kind with people and like genuine with people, and so, and because I was always kind of, I don't even know, I was kind of always on the androgynous end of things, and so I feel like, also because I hung out with a lot of guys, it was kind of like I could kind of get away with being that way. Like, guys aren't really like that with each other so much, but it's like some are. And I kind of adapted that kind of personality to myself, even though it wasn't genuine. It was just kind of something I was kind of more comfortable being like that, and kind of emulating other people that were kind of like acting kind of like that badass kind of person. Like a little bit of a troublemaker, not enough trouble to like get my parents to be like involved, but like enough trouble that, the teachers, when we had progress reports and stuff, they would write notes like, yeah, like you're interrupting people during class, and like, I'd be a little bit disruptive in class, a little like slight class clownish, but I was never really like genuinely that way. I just did it just because I was like, I don't know if I liked the attention, but I kind of didn't really know how else to be. But I kind of knew, I was like, I can't really be myself around these people. Like, it didn't feel comfortable. And when I moved to San Diego, actually no, I'd say when I started going to high school at a public school, this was like in like 2001 or something. When I started going to a public school in 2001, that's when I kind of recognized that some of the ways I was being were really just like, I could read people's facial expressions and I was like, well, that's not okay here. That's not okay to like do or say. And I knew that, but like nobody also told me don't say it, like, which is kind of weird, right? You think, oh, you're at a church, all these people telling people what they should or shouldn't do. You would think that somebody would have been like, hey, don't call people stupid. Hey, don't get on people's case about this or that. Like, but nobody ever said don't do it. So I was kind of like, I kind of knew that it wasn't really genuinely myself, but I kind of just did it. I was a kid, like I wasn't fully cooked yet, but I wasn't really aligned with my own values. I did not value it the way that I was treating people, but I always valued like my friendships and everything, and I really don't think I had bad blood with anybody, in all honesty. But that's probably something that I regret. Like, it's just kind of how I treated people, especially because it wasn't really aligned with how I value treating people, how I know and feel that I should treat people. Like, when I went to the public school, I remember this girl in front of me, I think her name was Patty. I can't remember. I think her name was Patty, but like with the pronunciation, like the Spanish, like Pati, kind of like, I think that was her name. I don't remember, honestly. It might not have been. But I remember we were in Spanish class together in another class, and she sat in front of me, and I thought she was so awesome. I was like, she's like the coolest person. I probably had a crush on her, but I don't really know, honestly. Like, I don't really remember. Like, I think I did now that I look back at it, because like it wasn't like a sexual crush necessarily. Like, I thought she was attractive and I just wanted to hang out with her all the time. But I knew she lived near me, and we had a project we were doing, and so I kind of got a little closer to her after going to her house, because I wanted people to come to my house, because I remember I wanted her to like see my house. But then I remember because I lived closest to the school, but then she also lived not that far from the school, so I was like, all right, my mom could drop me off or whatever. And then she told me which house she lived at and everything, and I remember getting there, and it was like a big house. And I remember in the Spanish class, we were talking like cultural stuff. They were saying that like this is in the Spanish class, like one of the dialogue kind of things, that like the dog's name was Bear or something, like Oso or something like that. And I guess that's like a common name for dogs, some kind of dogs, like in Spanish. And I was like, that's stupid, and she was like, that's my dog's name. And I was just like, oh, like, oh, whoops. Like, I felt really stupid, because I thought she would think I was like funny, but no, she didn't. And I remember also but I mean, like, I don't know if I said, oh, sorry, or like what, or if I just never said it again. But like, I felt like an idiot. Like, I was always just like saying stuff like that. I remember, like, and I was kind of acting like an idiot because I didn't know how to act. Like, I was raised around a bunch of people who didn't know how to act. So I just acted like other people acted, just kind of like sarcastic and stuff. And like, I didn't think it was a stupid name. I don't know what I thought. I'd never heard of a dog named Bear before. I'd never heard of, like, I loved Spanish class. She was cool to hang around with, like, in class or whatever. And like, we were partners for a lot of our class stuff. And like, I really wish I knew more. Like, I feel like there's a lot that I've just totally wiped from my brain. Like, I haven't thought about this person for like absolute ages. But this is like 20 years ago. So like seriously, like I really don't. But yeah, I remember what house she lived in, kind of like within like a 2 or 3 house distance. I could still point out where I think she lived. But I was always just, I didn't really fit in at that school, at the public school. I remember at the private school, because it was so small and like I grew up around everybody, it was kind of like when new kids came in, at a certain point, I was like one of the OGs. And so when new people would come into church, I would be like, pretty welcoming, but I also wasn't as friendly as I am now. So like there are a lot of people that I kind of knew were like a few kind of loner types that I feel like I wish I would have like talked to more, because I never thought that people were uncool or like anything. Like I didn't care if they were nerds or what. Like I like the pastor's kids. I like the really religious kids. Like I like all the kids. Like when I was a kid, like I didn't really care. Like I wasn't really like, unless they were really jerks. Even the kids that got like a bad reputation, that were like bad and like always fighting other kids and stuff, like nobody messed with me. Like nobody cared. Like I was just like whatever. Like I never really got bullied. Like nothing like that happened. And so, but yeah, I was kind of a jerk sometimes. I'm certain of it. I know I was, just by when I remember the reactions that certain people would have. I'm like, yeah, that was kind of like a jerk thing to say. I remember this. Okay, the last one about high school. I remember being in my U.S. history class. I wasn't doing good in that class at all. But I remember being in my U.S. history class, and the teacher, I think maybe every day she used to read like one headline about like the United States or something from the newspaper. I can't remember, or if this was just a specific day she did this, but I remember her reading the newspaper when class was starting. I think we would stand up, say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then she would read like a headline or something about like current events. I think it was like a current event of the day or something. And so she read like that one of the U.S., I think it was someone in Missouri, like one of the politicians had passed away or something. And I remember doing that kind of like, kind of like laugh like that, like, and then like nobody else was laughing, and I could feel like a couple people like looked at me, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't funny. And I knew it wasn't funny. Like I was like, that's not funny. Somebody died. But I kind of laughed. But it was kind of like, it wasn't even really a nervous response, I don't think. It was just kind of me just like not thinking it through and just reacting kind of in like a jerk kind of way to something that would be like a sensitive situation. And I was just like, screw this, like whatever. I'm not gonna act sympathetic. I'm gonna laugh at this, And I thought maybe some of the other kids would be laughing too, but like everyone was kind of like it wasn't like a big like grieving moment. Like nobody like cared. Like it wasn't anybody we knew personally or anyone from even our state or city, but it was kind of like we did know that. You don't laugh at somebody dying. Like, that's not normal, right? So it's like, I kind of I would do stuff like that. And it's like I do kind of regret that I was like that, but it's like, whatever. Like, at this point, it's like, there's nothing I can do about that I was like that as a kid. But I mean, yeah, I definitely did a lot of stuff like that. But I think my junior and senior year of high school, when I left that religious school, that's when I started noticing people's reactions to like when I would do that kind of stuff. Like I was never like mean. I would just like say like stuff like that. Stuff that was just like a little like, you could be a little more sensitive about that. But like inside of myself, I knew that I'm like an ultra sensitive person. Like I wasn't like really wanting to be that way. I just was that way because I wasn't comfortable being like how I actually wanted to be. And so I remember when I was like moving to San Diego, I was like, man, I wish that I could actually like have friends and be around friends and people that, I could actually be myself around and not feel like they were just gonna like, treat me kind of bad or whatever. Like not bullying, but kind of like kind of treat me kind of like passive aggressively, or like kind of notice like a vulnerability and just be like pointing it out or whatever. Like I already had kind of a lot against me. Like I was a minority, at a school, like, ethnically a minority. There were a lot of ethnic minorities, but I mean, I was still a minority of the minorities. Like, there weren't a lot of black people there. There weren't a lot of openly, like, queer people there. There weren't a lot of androgynous people there. But also, other than a few occasions, people never were, like, because I kind of played enough by the rules that I feel like people kind of knew something was up, but nobody was really, like, it was kind of a time period where nobody was ever asking you if you're gay too much. I played sports, and I was a female, but there were also other females that played sports, and because I went to church all the time, and I did wear, like, skirts and dress type of things, like, people kind of just left me alone on it, because it was like, well, you wear a dress to chapel, you wear a dress to church, like, it wasn't like I was always, like, not, I wasn't wearing, like, a suit and tie to church or anything, so it's like, I feel like, and I wasn't dating anybody either, from the church, and so, like, a lot of things I did, if I was interested in somebody, it would always be, like, a person from, like, the community, like, not the church community, but, like, I always had friends outside of the church, too, and so, whatever I did, I was able to kind of keep it away from, like, the church eyes, so I feel like there was never really that whole, like, oh, like, you must be interested in like, people who aren't men. And I do remember having a queer teacher, and I don't know if she openly told us while she was at that school, but I kind of got that vibe. I was like, all right, I see you, kind of thing. But I never really knew her sexuality. I just knew that, like, when I grew up, I was like, she is the kind of female that I was like, how come there aren't more of them? Like, I didn't really understand, like, why aren't there more of them? Like, she never really talked about her dating life or anything. But I do remember we used to make pies for like, fundraisers, like these $20 apple pies. And she was in the kitchen. She was the one, she was really, like, a hippie. And she would, like, take us to do, like, beach cleanups, and, like, we learned a lot about nature and all kind of stuff. Like, she was totally a hippie. And then we would, which is not uncommon in LA either, but, like, she basically taught us a lot about nature and things. And, we would make these, like, apple pies and, like, all this kind of stuff, like, and I remember saying, kind of not out loud, but, like, loud enough that she could hear it, to my friend Jocelyn. She was, like, one of the Panamanian pastor's kids, and I remember saying to her, because she was kind of, like, she identified as black, and I remember saying to her that there was this, like, black guy that I was kind of, like, into. There was a black guy I was into, and there weren't that many black guys, so it's like, I felt, like, pressured to choose, like, a black guy to have a crush on. And there was one that I actually liked, and I can't remember his name. I do remember his name, actually. His name was David. And then he was really good at basketball, and he was really quiet and, like, not, he was quiet. He hung out with these brothers named Alpha and Zeta, and they were super intelligent, and they all got, like, good grades, and David and Alpha were really good at sports, and I remember just thinking, like, David was an attractive guy, like, personality wise, and he always had, like, basketball sneakers. Like, I used to be, like, really into sneakers, like, certain, like, how certain basketball athletes have, like in the NBA, they have their own, like, signature sneakers, and he would always have, like, certain ones that I liked, and I was like, man, like, but I don't think I ever spoke a word to him, like, almost ever, and I just liked watching him play basketball all the time. I was like, dang, he's, like, really good. Like, he was really good, but really, like, humble. He went to a church I never went to, and he had a sister that was younger than me, And I remember he had a crush on my friend. I had a Nigerian female friend that was really good at singing and running, and she went to another church too, and he had a crush on her. So I was like, dang, man. Like, but I was still kind of into him, but I didn't really say anything. And then I think I said that I was into this other guy who was like, so David was like 1 grade above me, and I think this other guy was maybe like 2 or 3 grades above me. And I remember saying that I liked him just because he was probably the only other black guy that was older than me in the whole school. So I was like, well, I either like him or him, and I don't want to say which one I actually like, so I'll talk about the other one. And so I mentioned that, because we used to have this, it was slave day, and then it became indentured servitude day or whatever, where it was like a fundraiser, and you would like buy a slave or servant or whatever you want to call it. And one of, like, this guy was popular, so he was popular, so it was like, okay, if I say I like him, a lot of girls like him, like older girls like him, like the cool older girls like him, and so it's like I have zero chance with this guy anyways. And I was like, if he finds out that I said that I liked him, it's not going to be a big deal because I'm sure he's not into me anyways. And like, he's got all these other older girls chasing after him. They would all be like flirting and stuff. And I remember, I don't even know if I want to say, but like, anyways, like he was, well, okay. So basically he was always, one of my friends that was in my grade was like super flirty with guys, like handsy flirty. And like, I would always be like doing my homework after school and stuff so I could just play sports for the rest of the time. I didn't want to have to get home and be like my parents saying like, well, you can't play basketball or football or anything because you have to still do your homework. Like, I knew I had to do my homework. So right after school I would do my homework, and I knew that they hung out on this couch by the bathrooms. Like, there was a couch between the older students' bathrooms, and they would just sit there and be like flirty with each other and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, okay, like, I clearly am not like that. Like, I was like, in my head, I was like, I don't have this feeling for any guys in the school at all that I want to be acting like this towards any of them. Like, so I knew for a fact that something was different. I was like, okay, like, even if I think I like David and not this other guy, Jason, who I was saying I like Jason, but even though I wasn't really liking him, I was like, I could tell that the other girls were really flirting with him. At the least, they liked the flirting. At the least, they like touching each other and stuff. And none of that stuff was like okay at the school, but it was like, I was kind of like a buffer for a lot of the kids too, because like people would see, like teachers would see me around and they would just be like, oh, it's just you. Like, I'd be sitting there doing my homework all the time. So it's like, if I'm in the room and I'm in there, like, you were never allowed to be just like a boy and a girl in the room. And they always knew I would be in there, but it was kind of like I feel like it was almost like an unspoken, like, I'm going to be in there doing my homework at these times. So if people want to come over here and just like, make out or whatever, it's like, it wasn't like a problem, like, I wasn't going to tell anybody. Like, everybody knew I was just going to keep my mouth shut. I wasn't going to be like, oh, I was sitting on the couch and all these guys were like making out with each other. It's like, no, like, everybody knew like they could do what they wanted around me. And like, I would go in the bathroom, people would be talking about like drugs or smoking and all kinds of stuff. Like, I was never like snitching and ratting on people. I was always just like, I was cool with everybody. So it was kind of like, I never really, like, even the older kids, like, I really looked up to a lot of the like older girls that were at our school. Like, I was kind of like, I wasn't like into them though. I don't feel like I was like sexually interested. Like, it's kind of hard to tease out kind of like what exactly was happening in my head. But I don't think it was like I want to hook up with them. It was more like I want them to like me and want to have fun together and go do stuff together and like hang out and things and be cool with me hanging around with them. And like, all of them were like, and it was mostly like Latina females. They were kind of into kind of like, I mean, this was like a very religious school, but people still had their kind of like cultural things that they were into. So they were kind of into like chola type culture. Not maybe full. I don't think that they actually were like into anything serious, but like they do the makeup and stuff. And like I picked up on a lot of like Spanish kind of slang and like, you know, a lot of stuff like that. And like they would be like cussing at each other a little bit, like just for fun and like stuff like that. And like just the way they were with each other, I kind of knew how to be around them. And it was kind of like they had a lot of street smarts and a lot of like qualities about them that, like, you know, they lived around a whole lot of minorities and things, like over in like Carson and Compton and Inglewood and Lawndale and Hawthorne and like other neighborhoods like Gardena, like neighborhoods that I'm familiar with that, you know, I knew had more minorities, different types of minorities with like dark skin. And you know, I was pretty much into like hanging out with them. Like I kind of like almost passively hung out with them, but like they were nice to me. Like they were never like, I noticed how they treated me. I would kind of notice how people would treat me compared to how they treated other people. And I noticed like for the girlier girls, a lot of the older girls didn't like the younger girlier girls. And then a lot of the guys were kind of into the way the girlier girls kind of looked, but they didn't treat them the way that they treated me. Like I could just walk into a group full of guys talking about girls and they would never tell me to go away. They would never tell me like anything. Like I would just hang out with them and like they would just talk around me like I was one of them. Like there was never anything that they said that like they didn't want me to hear. And like it was, I always found it interesting. Like they'd always be talking about things that I was like, I have no idea what's going on with your genitalia and all this stuff. I don't have any clue. And like they didn't mind just like saying whatever they were saying. And I'm like, oh, like, okay. And I kind of learned a lot that way because I was like, okay, like I kind of like understand operationally how things go. But it's like, you know, I also wasn't as interested in them as some of my other friends were. And so for that reason, it was a little different on that end because it's like, I feel like people felt like they could say things or be certain ways around me because I wasn't sexualizing the guys. Like, I didn't really care, you know, if they were like changing out of their gym clothes back into their chapel clothes or whatever they were doing, like, and I was like right there, like, I wasn't like, oh, I want to like check out his underwear or whatever. Like, I didn't really care. I was like, whatever. And same with like the girls, I wasn't interested in most of them anyways. Like, you know, like most of the femme girls, like I really didn't really like them. Like, not that we didn't hang out, but like we hung out more like on a church level, but we didn't really like hang out at school too much because they were just kind of like gossipy and would just sit around and gossip. And I would rather just play basketball, and hockey and football and soccer and speedball and any other thing. Even if it was just like 3 flags up, I would much rather do something athletic. But I did like sitting around talking. So I did have some guys that were like kind of sensitive guy friends. I did like to be around them, and we kind of sat around and talked a lot and didn't really play sports. But yeah, I didn't really like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it was kind of like, I kind of would, I'd say if I had to choose someone that I was interested in, it was probably either David, the guy who was in, I remember he was in 8th grade at that time. So I was like a 7th grader. 7th graders were like bottom of the barrel. So I was like a 7th grader. And then, so I remember that. And then, so I remember that. I remember being like around girls, like some girls that were like older, and I kind of did like them in like a crush-ish kind of way, but I wasn't like into them like I don't think it was like a sexual thing, really. I really don't. Like, I mean, if it was, I was like blocking it out. Like, I don't really remember ever like hardcore like crushing on anybody at the religious school. I mean, there was kind of like a form of crush, but it wasn't like like I fully wanted like any kind of like physical interaction with any of these people, if that makes any sense. Like it was kind of more like I really like their personality and want to be around them all the time, but I didn't really like know what it was. It was like a certain kind of like other kind of interest. But yeah, I don't really know. Like that was just always interesting to me. And then like yeah, like I remember getting to be like older, like I don't know, like in college I was so busy. There was one girl that I really kind of was into. Like when I think back, I'm like, I think a lot of these girls I was kind of into them, but I didn't really like know that I was. But it was like there would be a lot of datey vibes, and you know, I could kind of, I don't know what it was, like I could tell that they would kind of like want to hang out all the time and stuff, and like I don't know if I don't know if any of them were bi or gay or what. Like I never even really thought about it, because I never really even thought about what I was. I just knew I wasn't like all of these other people. And I did have like a friend that was around my age that was a lesbian, that I knew about that since I was in like 3rd grade or 4th grade, and she was in like 3rd grade. But the way she talked about girls, I was like, I don't really feel that way about them necessarily. Like I'm not really trying to do all that. Like I never really thought about them like that. But like I just remember being like older, like I'm trying to think, like I remember being like, I'm trying to like put this on like a timeline. I do remember being a little bit like I'm trying to think if after, like during early college, so in community college, before I transferred to a university, there were definitely a lot of female friends that I had. That not a lot of female friends, but that is probably the first time that I remember having people in my life that were not connected to anybody else that I knew. Because at the public school, my brother went to that school the year after me, and then at the private school, like everybody knew everybody and everybody's business. But yeah, but when we were in that, excuse me, my sinuses are acting real weird right now. When we were in that environment, I remember it being like really, like, how do I say, like, yeah, in that public school, community college, I remember for the first time being like, all right, these are people that nobody else knows, and I can be nice here. I don't have to feel like I need to be like some like cool person, and I can actually be more kind of genuinely myself. And I did remember meeting a lot of people that like we had a lot of good relationships, really friendly for years. Like even after I didn't go to that school anymore, like there were some friends that I had that were like, you know, we kept in touch for like probably a good decade or so. Like, and I think they were really important relationships. It was just kind of hard because like everybody was like, a lot of my friends were like maybe a grade technically younger, like a year younger in school. They were in my brother's year, and so he eventually the next year started going to that school, but I'd already developed a lot of friendships with a lot of people, and we did have a little overlap of like friends that knew one another and stuff. we were in like Mesa, the Math, Engineering, and Science Association or whatever. So a lot of the friends we had in common were through Mesa, or some of our church friends that happened to go not to private Christian colleges and universities, but happened to also go to those colleges, to that college. And so, but all the people who went to the college, like, I think we were all cool. Like, nobody was like the narc type of, like, ultra religious narc gossipy type. Like, everyone was like the other type of, like, just chill. Like, everyone was kind of like, thank God we're out of those other environments and we're able to kind of like interact with people here. So we interacted with people, you know, there, and I enjoyed my time at the school there, in college. And I remember, I'm not gonna say their name, but I remember one particular friend that I was like, I think I was kind of into them a little bit. Like, there was an older lady and there was a lady that was kind of like my age, but I think she was like a year younger than me. And like I don't know, that was kind of like the first, not the first time I had like female friends, but the first time I had like female friends that weren't church friends and weren't like sports friends. And I was like, well, what is this? Like, I don't know what this is. Like, that was kind of like new and interesting. It's like, oh, we can like hang out and like get to know each other and stuff. And I was like, this is kind of, it got to be kind of like, not really datey. Like, I don't want to even go as far as to call it like datey. But I would say the vibes that I had with those people when we were hanging out was kind of the same vibe that I would say I have now when I am kind of in early dating stages with people, just like really getting to know them. And like, it was very kind of like date vibes, but there wasn't really the gayness to it. And maybe there was, and I just never knew and I never asked. And maybe I was giving off that vibe, the energy, because like I did kind of have some kind of feelings for them. I just don't know if I even knew what it was. I can't even, it's hard for me to like go back and like remember too much, because like I was very like disconnected with my emotions back then, like for sure. And so it's really hard for me to kind of like go back and be like label what it was, because I didn't really allow myself to like fully experience things or like be open about things that I wanted to be. But I think if any of them would have approached me as like in a dating manner, I would have freaked out, because that would have been a little, I wasn't really, I was still living with my parents, and I couldn't say I've never dated anybody, but it was never like something that was sustainable, just because like I had so many eyes, you know, just kind of like involved in my life, that it was like I could never really fully just do what I wanted to do and know that I could get away with it. It's like, how am I supposed to date a girl at a school with a bunch of people who go there that know me from church? You know, it's like, and they all know the same people and we're all like hanging out together. Like, somebody's gonna know. But I was like kind of really into this girl. But my friend, there was a friend that I had that I was like, he's perfect for her. I don't understand. Like, this is like the weirdest way of thinking. Now that I'm looking back at it, I'm like, this is weird. But I remember being like, I really want him to go out with her, because like I really kind of like admired this friend. Like, he was a guy friend that I had that was like, I don't know. He was really intelligent. He wasn't bad at sports. He wasn't like the best athlete, but he wasn't like I don't know, he was kind of shy, but I kind of liked him like culturally. Like, he came from like a Latino family, was really like, his family was really kind of really nice people. And he was pretty solid in my life. Like, he was like close. We were pretty close. And then, especially like during that age time, like in early college ages. And I remember him like being into my friend, and he was like, you know, can you like tell me about her kind of thing? And I was like, oh, cool, yeah, I can tell you like everything, you know, because like we ain't all the time. Like, yeah, I got this. Like, I got you on this one, you know. And I was like, okay, so we're gonna go do this. Like, I don't know who set it up, but I think we all set up like a mini golf. I think me and him set it up, and invited one of my other friends who was like a total flirt and would always be like trying to like swoop in on other people's girls. And I saw like this friend of mine, I would let him do that because I was like, whatever, you do you, like whatever. But when it came to this specific girl, I mean, woman, I don't know what you want to say. Like, I feel like it was like girl because we were like kind of kids, even though we were like 18-ish. But like, I feel like I would say girl because we were still kind of kids. But yeah, this young lady that he was, that my friend, you know, the first guy I knew was into, and I was trying to like tell him about her and everything, because I could tell he was like watching her from afar. He wasn't just like, oh, she's like attractive, so I want her kind of thing. I could tell he genuinely wanted to be with her. So I was like, okay, cool, you genuinely want to be together, and I think you'd be a good fit. And me and her were really close, and so I was kind of like, hey, like, I know she would always talk to me about guys. That's kind of what I was there for. A lot of times, for a lot of people, I was the one who they would talk to about their relationships. I don't know why I would be the person. Like, I wasn't even really dating anybody in the public eye, and so I don't know why people would come to me to talk to me about dating, but I guess they always did. And she would kind of talk to me about, you know, not having a boyfriend and all this kind of stuff, and I'd be like, okay. And then when I found out that my friend was into her, I was like, this is actually great, because he's a really nice guy, and I would want her to be with someone like him, you know, like me, you know. But I was like, like he's fine for her, you know. Like, I liked that idea because I felt like they would be happy together. And so I remember it was weird. Like, this was like a really weird experience that I'm like barely noticing. But like, we went to mini golf, and you know how guys, it's not only guys, but sometimes people pretend like, oh, let me like teach you how to like do the form and hold the you know, the golf club and like all this kind of stuff. So not the friend who had a crush on her that was talking to me about her, but the other friend who was always swooping in. The swoop in friend came, and he swooped in, and he started you know, going behind her and being like, hey, let me show you how to swing, and like all, and he'd be like, oh, good, like just really paying like extra close attention to her. And he did that for like 2 holes. And then my other friend, I remember he was pissed. And when like the first friend that was like into her, and when I noticed he was pissed, I was like, oh shit, this other guy's swooping in. He's swooping in, and I was like, oh no, like, you know. And then I remember that was weird, because I'm not like an ultra jealous person, but I actually remember being jealous about that, which was really strange. I was like, I wouldn't be jealous if it was this other friend who likes her, because I know his intentions. He actually likes her and wants to, like, you know, they would be good for each other. She's looking for someone that's kind of like him. And then this other friend who just like flirts with every old body under the sun. And I was just kind of like, yeah, like, she needs to be with this other guy. Like, you know, that's not okay that he's swooping in. So I remember going to that other guy that was like swooping in. I'm like, bro, like, I invited her here, you know, and because like she, you know, me and the swooping guy hung out all the time. Me and the swooping guy and the you know, guy with the crush, we hung out all the time, the 3 of us too, and with other groups of friends. But this girl, she was a specific friend of mine, and so I was like, bro, like, I brought her in here because I want her to talk to him. And he was just kind of like, well, you know, you can't just like, I'm like, dude, you get every girl you want, like, leave her alone and like let this guy like have a chance, because I know that they would get along, and you know, I know he really likes her. Well, I didn't say like all that, but like in my head I don't know exactly what I said, but I did tell him to kind of back off, you know, And it's kind of, I think he probably felt weird about it too, because the energy that I approached him with was kind of like weird, I think, because he could probably tell that I wasn't into him being, you know, so touchy-feely with her. Like, that was just an awkward moment for me. I was like, I don't even know how to feel about this. Like he's swooping in on our girl. You know, like, it was kind of like, that's kind of how it felt. But it was like, not, she wasn't my girlfriend at all, like, by any sense. Like, we were not together, we were not in a relationship, it was nothing along those lines. We were friends, you know, close friends, but we were friends. And so, yeah, I remember though just being like, oh, like, I don't want him to like talk to her or whatever, like, stop trying to get her number kind of thing. And he listened, he backed off, you know. There was a little, I think there was like a little back and forth for like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue between both of us. He kind of pushed, because he did kind of push back a little bit, and I was trying to explain, like, it's not okay that you always kind of do this, and like, you know, I was trying to set something up, and like, he was kind of like, oh, well, he needs to be more assertive, and I'm like, nah, like, you are just, like, you need to back off, you know. Like, I remember, like, kind of sticking up for the other guy and just being like, what are you doing? Like, but I also knew that he wasn't aware that this was the setup, like, that we were trying to set this up so that the mini golf experience could be for the two of them without it being, like, awkward. And so he did back off, and then my friend kind of, you know, the crush guy was able to kind of talk to her a little bit more. And then, like, but I remember being, like, really protective of her. I remember being really protective of the guy with the crush, and then really kind of upset with the guy who was always swooping in. Because the thing is like, he was just a total flirt. He liked paying attention to people. It was just kind of the way he did things. But sometimes I was like, usually I was so removed from the situation, I was like, whatever, like, let boys be boys kind of thing. Like, I didn't really care. I knew that's how a lot of guys were, and I just let them do it. It wasn't really a problem. But it was a little different for me when it was like someone who was actually my friend. I was like, okay, like, this, like, the guy with the crush was my friend, the girl that I was introducing was my friend. I mean, the other guy who was swooping in was my friend too, but it was kind of like, I mean, he could do that on any occasion and get any girl's attention that he wanted, just because he knew that how to pay attention to them. And I mean, so did I, but it was kind of like, I feel like we kind of did it in different ways. He was able to kind of do it from like being like a straight male, and putting forth that, like, hey, like, I want to flirt with you because I find you attractive kind of thing. I feel like I wasn't really able to do that. Like, I don't know if I was like jealous of him just because he could do that and get away with it, and I kind of couldn't just openly just be all like that. Like, I couldn't be all like flirty. Like, I was never really flirty with people. Like, I can turn it on like a little bit sometimes, but it's just not really, like, if somebody wants me to, okay, I'll do it, but it has to be like by request for the most part, or I have to really be like drunk or something. Like, it's not very common that I would be like flirting. But yeah, I just felt like it was a really interesting experience. Like, when I'm looking back on it, I'm like, was I jealous? Like, what was happening with me? Like, something was up with me, that wasn't like an average kind of experience for me to be having. Like, something was certainly up with me. I don't know what it was, but something was up. Like, let me see if I can I'm trying to take off my button up because we're in traffic and I have a tank top under, and I feel like I'm sweating through my shirt because I'm not opening the windows because I'm recording. If you haven't noticed, I'm in the car. I'm excitedly driving to San Diego and hit traffic at Camp Pendleton as usual. But I'm trying to like take off this freaking shirt. I did have a little caffeine today. I thought I wasn't gonna be like energetic enough, and I wanted to like cram in a workout before I left. I think caffeine makes me really sweaty. I had a pre-workout, and I think it just really makes me sweaty. So I'm kind of just gonna have to drive with my shirt a little off. I mean, I'm wearing a tank top, so it's not really a big deal. But yeah, I felt a little. I think I did feel a little jealous. Not too much though. I'm trying to, like, not so much that it may be like I just blocked it out of my mind. But I mean, I feel like it wasn't something that like lasted longer than just like those couple minutes. And then I was over it like because he stopped, and so I was kind of like over it. I never like. It was just for a few moments. I just remember feeling like really weird. Like I was like, I don't usually feel like this, and it may not have been jealousy. It may have been like, I don't really know, but I just remember like there were certain things that I noticed that he could do that like I was like, well, I can't get away with doing anything like that, you know, like I can't be like openly like doing anything, you know, like like even if I wanted to, I couldn't, because it's like that would be gay, and you know, this is church people, like you can't be doing like gay stuff around them. Like they were not cool with anything, like they were so prejudiced. Like, I mean, they were also very open-minded in a lot of ways, but I feel like it was like prejudice in a lot of ways too. So I don't know. I'm trying to take this stupid shirt off and I can't because it's too tight. I feel like people are like watching me trying to get undressed. Like, I don't even care. But I'm on the freeway in traffic, trying to take off this shirt. I'm totally sweating straight through my stupid shirt. It's so annoying. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of what I remember. There's a lot of stuff like that happened that was just like weird kind of roles that I wasn't able to play. Maybe roles that I might have wanted to play. I don't really know if I really wanted to, and if I was given the chance, would I have? I don't really know. Like, it's just kind of like hard to really predict like how would I have actually been, because I was closeted, but not only just closeted to society, I was kind of closeted to myself as well. So I wasn't like too like sexually open with myself even. Like, dude, it's gonna be hard to take this thing off. Like, I wasn't really like open with myself about how I felt about things or certain people, but I'm pretty sure I like this girl. I just never really gave myself full permission to be like openly liking her, because I felt weird about it, honestly. Like, I felt like it wouldn't be okay, and so I just kind of kept it to myself. And that was my own decision. I mean, I don't feel like I have to be like openly out about things. Like, it's not like a necessity or anything. But I mean, I was young, so it's kind of like when you're still living with your parents and you have no real like income to like sustain yourself, it's gonna be really kind of hard to be like having different types of stuff going on like that. So yeah, I never found it easy. I never found dating to be like an easy thing, honestly, until I moved to like San Diego. That was like the only time I was ever really able to be just like fully away from like the church eyes. That was probably almost a bigger thing than my parents, because I feel like my parents don't talk about dating. They don't talk about sexuality. There's so much stuff that they just don't discuss, that I feel like it was like a non-topic with them. Like, they weren't gonna bring it up. Like, they're not very open about that kind of stuff, so they're not gonna ask me if I'm dating somebody. And I wasn't gonna tell them anyways. But it's like, you know, they're so, even now, like, I think I've mentioned, like, I have a straight sister with a straight boyfriend, and my parents are still kind of like weirded out. I'm like, what is the problem? You know, like, to me, I'm always just like, I almost wish they wouldn't talk to me about it, because I'm like, I don't even see the issue. They just want to like complain. Like, I know my mom the other day was telling me about like how my dad was so offended that my sister's boyfriend was like going into my sister's bedroom or whatever. And like, I don't know if she mentioned that he was like sleeping there, or that they were like upset that she was like sleeping in the same, I mean, they live together and they share a bedroom, but she was like, oh, like, and she was mentioning too that like it was weird in her house, that it had been weird like in her house, like for them to be like doing that, and how my sister initially like mentioned she has a friend coming over, and how she was kind of like hesitant to mention that it was like her boyfriend or whatever, and I'm like, dude, that to me speaks volumes. It's like, if my straight sister with her straight boyfriend is a little like weirded out to tell my parents that she's having, you know, holiday company, I mean, that just goes to show it's not just me. Like, our family is like, especially, yeah, on both my mom and dad's side, like, they're very like repressive as far as their take on dating and things like that. Like, they are not in the century about that kind of thing. But I got my shirt off at least. Finally. But yeah, they're not really in the century about that kind of topic. So I did find it really eye-opening. Like, he was here this holiday too, and I'm gonna assume, I don't know if he slept on the couch or slept in her room. Like, I don't really know. I don't really care. I was usually in my room before people were sleeping, probably around 8 or 9. So, you know, but I don't really know. Like, they probably shared her room. I don't really think it's a big deal. But it's just kind of weird. Like, I don't know, it's just such a repressive kind of culture that I never fully vibed with. But like, I know the rules, I know how to play by the game, you know, but it's like weird. And I know I'm not the only one that was raised that way, but it's just kind of really strange, because it's like, me and my siblings were all like in our 30s, and so I don't think when you're in your 30s it should be awkward to be like bringing, you know, someone around to the house. And I remember my mom was saying how my dad was like so offended about my sister having her boyfriend, like how he was like in her room or whatever. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, is it that my dad was offended, or that my mom is offended about it, or like what? And I'm like, why are they offended? Like, who cares? You know, it's like they kind of do give mixed messages too. Like, I don't know. Dang, still like an hour. So okay, I've been talking a while, so I'm gonna cut this one where we're at, because I've still got another hour to drive. So I think I'm gonna cut this one because it's like 90 minutes, and then I might still keep talking about my folks and their kind of like dating or whatever. Alright, so with that, sorry it's been a while. I tried to warn that it was going to be slow going for a while, but now that I'm driving to San Diego and going to be in San Diego, hopefully we can catch things up. I'm just kind of rambling about what's on my mind. I didn't sleep well last night. I think I didn't sleep till like, I was up still around like 1-2 a.m. And then I tried to sleep in this morning and I kind of couldn't. That's why I had a little bit of C4. I hadn't had caffeine in a while, for like maybe like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks by now. I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. And then I was like, I really want to get some exercise though, because I feel good and I want to just do it. And so I was kind of exercising with my brother a little bit in the living room, and like hanging out and just like whatever, just kind of like chilling. And then, you know, my mom started bothering me. She's trying to take like holiday pictures of me or whatever on her bike. I was like on her bike, like you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I hate it when people just like start taking pictures of me, and I didn't want her to, and so I was like, okay, stop, you know, like leave me alone, kind of thing. But yeah, so I'm gonna cut this, and then I'll probably keep talking more about dating related stuff, or I'll see what kind of comes to my mind. This veered way off from like talking about holiday topics, but I needed a good driving ramble. But yeah, I'm kind of in a bit of a brain fog today, but it might not be noticeable because I got a little caffeine in my system. But yeah, so with that, thanks for listening.